And so we had all these people coming in from out of state, Texas being one of them. Again, like I said, California, Arizona, a lot of places out there, just because people had been here before. They liked it. They wanted to come live here. And so we had this huge influx of people. And again, even with the people from California, if you live on the ocean, it's pretty much open and free as far as the basic rules. They didn't have the inland lakes. Same thing with Texas. They don't really have a whole lot of the inland lakes and the rules that they have of what you can and can't do with your boat.
This is Michael Travis with the Waterfront Agent Podcast. I am here with Aaron Kendall of KW in Traverse. Are you in Traverse City? Traverse? You're in Michigan, Northern Michigan.
Northern Michigan, Traverse City.
As you can tell by your hat. And I'm from Michigan. Born here, grew up here, and you're here, right?
Yes. That's the test. You can always tell if someone's from Michigan because they'll always put their hand up and they'll point to you where they're from.
That's right.
I grew up here and ended up moving up here.
Is that Lansing
or
U of M?
Lansing area. I actually went to Michigan State University, believe it or not, graduated from Michigan State University with a criminal justice degree. And I just so happened to be there when they won the national championship for basketball. And all of my friends on my dorm floor knew that I was a big Michigan fan. And so all night long, they were pounding on my door to let me know that Michigan State won. And I'm like, yes, I saw the game. I'm aware. Thank you very much.
Now, what year was that, by the way?
That would have been 2000.
Okay.
Yep. And then when I first...
years have 19 in front of it, so, you know.
Yep. And then when I first got there, that was 1997, which was when Michigan won the football national championship. And they had this amazing defense, and nobody could score on them. So me being me, every Monday I would wear a Michigan football sweatshirt around campus. And one of the professors interrupted the class. There's a lecture of 200 or 300 kids in there, and I hate that guy. Every Monday he shows up with that damn Michigan sweatshirt. I hate him. Screw you.
Okay, so I know this is not podcast material, but it's fun to talk about. My twin brother, I have an identical twin brother. He went to Michigan State. I went to Miami of Ohio, which of course is the cradle of coaches for everything in Michigan. But I didn't go to Ohio State.
That's good.
Miami of Ohio was established before the state of Florida was a state.
Okay.
That's how old it is. And I had a shirt that said, Miami's in Ohio, damn it. And I always tell the story of the border dispute of 1830 something,
mm-hmm.
The border at the bottom. And so what did Michigan get and what did Ohio get? Ohio got a potato field, which is now Toledo, and we got the entire Upper Peninsula. And also, we still have the Edmund Fitzgerald somewhere at the bottom of Lake Superior.
Somewhere at the bottom, yes. Yep.
That's right. And as I say, if Michigan, then Ohio to even out the pressure. You know that one?
I don't think I've heard that one.
You can figure it out. Okay.
I think the UP for a potato field was probably a good trade.
Yes, and of course the Petoskey Rock and the Pet Rock came from the University of Upper Peninsula. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
A little trivia. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? You're a great Michigander. We have the same weather. You have more water than we do in New Hampshire. But tell me about how you started and what got you into this crazy business. And does any family member that you have also do it, and why?
Okay. All right. I do not have any other family members in real estate. They do like to hear the stories of anything funny that I come across that seems to be entertaining. But you never know what you run into in a house.
Yes.
I ended up kind of falling into real estate. After I graduated high school, I joined the Army. I got to travel around to lots of different parts of the country, which was a lot of fun for an 18-year-old. You get to go to a lot of cool places and see a lot of cool things and meet a lot of really different people from different walks of life. So I've been blessed to be able to travel all over the country. After that, I went to Michigan State University And then after Michigan State, I got a criminal justice degree. And so I got into investigations and law enforcement kind of stuff. So I worked for a company where I got to travel around the country doing investigations. And so then when I got done with that, I came back to Michigan. I did more investigation work for the state of Michigan with children and families. And I did that for about 10 years and ended up falling into real estate. My old realtor introduced me to our broker up here in Traverse City. She drove all the way up from Lansing, which is a couple-hour drive, introduced me. I didn't know anything about real estate other than just buying and selling a couple of houses at that point. And it had been something that I would always been interested in because it seems interesting. There's a lot that goes into it. So then I started doing realty on a part-time basis while I still worked for the state. And eventually it got to the point where it just got too busy. I couldn't do both, a full-time job working with the state of Michigan and then also trying to do all the realty stuff. And as I got busier and busier, I had to make a decision. I'm like, I cannot do both of these and be competent at both. I can't be torn in two different directions. And so I made the decision to jump full-time into real estate, and I've been doing that now. This is my 10th year, I think probably my 5th or 6th year of full-time real estate. So now the added benefit of all the investigative work in the past kind of influences how I work now. And a lot of my clients like the attention to detail, and I really tend to dig into things, and it's not very often that something can get past me, but that's because of my past background of, hey, no, we need to scour through this stuff and make sure that you're not walking into a problem a year from now that you don't even realize is coming. I guess that's where I came from and how I ended up getting into real estate.
I also believe that we bring real life experience into the real estate experience for our clients. Right now, your experience is very handy because there are so many scams every single day I get hit, from land sales that aren't owned by the person trying to sell it. In one case, I actually drove to the guy's house and I said, "Did you know your house is being sold, your land?" He goes, he had no idea. Mm-hmm. I showed him a picture of a perfectly forged driver's license of him, except it was a different face. But at least he knew his identity was being breached very early on. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know it's a scam and they don't do it. And in another case, a client of mine said, "Oh, look, I got through a wholesaler an auction for 3 waterfront lots." And it was the second time he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "First of all, it's too cheap. Second of all, they're asking you to do a cash purchase in 8 days. And third of all," he said, "Yeah, but it comes with like title." I said, it doesn't for you because it's a cash. There's 2 parts of a title insurance, which a lot of people don't know about. So I stopped him from getting hurt, which that's part of what our job is, to help people. And with your background, you probably look at things a little bit more detailed, and that's good. And so that being said, especially because you have an eye for seeing something that might be a little off, what's an example of something that happened that was way off?
Yeah, we run into what you're describing is the exact same thing we run into. There's a lot of vacant land in northern Michigan. Pretty much once you get past like Lansing and on up, it's all vacant land up here.
Yep.
And so we get that a lot. We really haven't run into people trying to scam an actual house yet. I think it's probably because it's a little bit more difficult and there's more into that than there is vacant land transactions in showings and that kind of stuff. And so we get the vacant land scam a lot up here. And same thing, what you described, we do a little bit of research. You find out who the real person is. Most of the time they happen to live up here. This is just extra lots of land that they've had in their family or whatever. And you go knock on the door and you say, "Hey, I'm Aaron. This might sound a little bit weird, but are you looking to sell any land?" And the minute they start talking and you say, "Wow, you don't sound at all like the Steve that I talked to about 2 hours ago," they turn out to be very appreciative. I just had one probably maybe 2 months ago where it was like that. It was a guy had 10 acres. I looked him up, went and knocked on his door, And he starts telling me, yeah, I had this happen probably about a year ago. Another realtor came up and told me the same thing. So it's like repeatedly over and over again, the scammers try it. And thankfully, we're pretty good, I think, about catching those, and the title companies are pretty good about it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the townships, some of them up here have put in things where they give you notifications and email alerts. But all that does is tell you that something has happened and it's too late. Especially if they're trying to do this week or two, get in, get out, get the money. And by the time anyone knows, it's still too late.
So here's my take on it. We have the same kind of program. I'm trying to propose what I call the land scam plan, which is LSP, which sounds like LSD, but
might take off.
Yes, more people will be interested. The reason that the land here, a lot of the landowners are out of state.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Massachusetts, they're wherever. In Florida, I've talked to a lot of people, they're out of the country sometimes, so it's even harder. However, the land deals they're all owned. There's no mortgage, there's no lien, nothing. So I'm just proposing an idea with some lenders. I said to create an automatic small lien on a property to the benefit of the seller and the owner so that they're not targeted, because these thieves aren't going to target anything that has a lien on it.
Mm-hmm.
In a house situation, so many have liens on them anyway that it's okay. But then again, there's some liens that were put on a bogus person who I've seen this 3 times at least, where a predatory lender came in and says, oh, I know you're having financial trouble and here we'll save the day. And you just sign this piece of paper and you'll get it back in 2 years, like it's a 2-year loan. But in essence, they took over the deed. They put in a predatory second loan on the property. When they got it back, there was an equity loan they knew nothing about. Because it was in their name still, and then they couldn't afford it, went to foreclosure, and it couldn't be cleared. Whatever, there was no, so it's just awful what these people do.
Yeah.
So that's my land scam plan. I'm seeing if something maybe it will. I've talked to a few people, but I think that solves a lot of potential scammers from going after anything that's got any sort of lien, because it will be caught very quickly.
Yeah.
From the title. And here, especially, a lot of landowners are out of state. Right. Okay, what are some things that you really, based on your experience, you really want people to know about how you operate and things that happen up there? Things are different in Michigan, especially in waterfronts. You've got, Michigan has 20% of the world's fresh water. Mm-hmm. That's a little trivia. You do a lot of waterfronts and they're everywhere. What kinds of things do you run into in terms of what buyers may not even know about owning a waterfront?
Yep. Up here, because we're on the bay, there's a lot of inland lakes, and then you have the big expansive bay that goes here. Let me get right here, the right thing. So you've got Lake Michigan coming up, and then all the water around here is the bay, but you've got all these inland lakes all over the place too. And there's very different rules up here between the townships. Inside each county, you have several townships, and each township gets to make up whatever rules they want. So you could have 2 lakes within 5 miles of each other, and they could be very similar lakes, but they have very different rules. Everything from short-term rental rules to what are your riparian rights and how those work. What kind of boats are allowed on the lakes, whether they're all sports lakes where you can have whatever you want, or no wake lakes where you get a canoe and that's about all you get. And so, like I said, you can have 2 lakes that are very similar within a couple miles of each other, and the dynamic on them is completely different. And then you go a few more minutes and you're on the bay, and it's almost like the ocean. The rules there are completely different as well. And so it's a very nuanced thing for people that aren't from here, that are familiar and have grown up around those rules. If you have people coming from out of state where they came here on vacation and they loved it and they thought it was great, and then where they're from, they just don't have water. And so they don't understand there's so many different rules on how things work. And that's probably the biggest thing that we deal with especially the out of state people that move here, is educating them on it's very different here of what you think happens on the water. It's not what's on TV. It's not what you hear about on Facebook. It's very different.
For some reason, I've talked to a lot of Michigan agents, which is good because I'm from Michigan. We all have a good dry sense of humor, and we know what Verner's is. But
yes, the cure-all.
That's right. And I'm actually wearing a Boblo boat shirt, by the way.
Okay.
But I'm understanding a lot of buyers are coming from places like Texas in Michigan. There are no lakes.
Yep.
Where are you seeing the migration of people? And it might be summer homes. It might be homes that become year-round homes, especially during COVID, maybe.
We've always had, in Northern Michigan, we've always had historically a lot of people from Chicago. Was always a heavy place that people would come. And then when COVID happened, not to go back and talk about COVID times, but when COVID happened, we got a massive influx from all over the country. Arizona, California, Washington. Texas was another place that sent a lot of people. And I think the reason for that was everybody got sent home to work from home. And then everyone was under the thinking, hey, this is going to be the way it is from now on. And so all these people started saying, oh, so all I have to do is get an internet connection and I can work from anywhere. And remember that time we went to Traverse City and they had the dunes and all the blue water. And on the right day, the water here in the bay looks like the Caribbean. It does. It's that blue. And so people come here and
the sand is that sandy.
Yes. Yep.
A lot of people don't know that Michigan has sand dunes.
Yes. Yep.
Just to run down that.
Yep. And it's all right here in this area. I can take a 20-minute trip and be on top of the sandiest sand dune you've ever seen. And 5 minutes later, I can be swimming in Caribbean, Mexican, blue water, and it's all in the same area. And so we had a lot of people that were like, great, I can go live there, I can go work, and as soon as I'm done with work in 20 minutes, I can be out on a boat or playing in the water or adventuring in Northern Michigan or going on trails. And so we had all these people coming in from out of state, Texas being one of them. Again, like I said, California, Arizona, a lot of places out there, just because people had been here before, they liked it, they wanted to come live here. And so we had this huge influx of people. And again, even with the people from California, if you live on the ocean, it's pretty much open and free as far as the basic rules. They didn't have the inland lakes. Same thing with Texas. They don't really have a whole lot of the inland lakes and the rules that they have of what you can and can't do with your boat and how much of the shoreline you can use. And so, again, it kind of goes back to when you have people coming in from out of state, it's really important to let them know what you can and can't do before they go plunking $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on a house.
So here we have, there's 1,300 lakes, there's 30,000 miles of rivers, and there's mountains and all the same kind of stuff. And a lot of what I do is I educate people about New Hampshire. New Hampshire is the wealthiest state per capita in the country, which nobody would think of. But the education, do you have grades of lake? Like here we have eutrophic and mesotrophic and oligotrophic lakes, which is a category of a lake. Do you have anything like that? Not really.
Not really. That doesn't sound familiar to me. The basic, kind of like what, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, of what exactly that means. Our lakes are pretty much differentiated between all sports or no wake lakes of what you're allowed to do in the water. For example, you'd never be able to take a boat with a motor on it on a no wake lake. The DNR or the local sheriff's marine team would be out there nailing you right away.
Yeah, so we have that. That's some lakes, jet skis are not allowed. Some lakes are so small, 85 acres, that you can only go in one direction if you're water skiing. And then people don't know there's a difference between a jet ski and a watercraft. Looks the same, it's just longer. Now, Michigan is there's a lot of clay on the ground, and that may affect things like septics.
Yes.
And by the way, my grandfather had a place in Lake Michigan. So my early youth is Lake Michigan with 300-foot sandy beach, and we had to clear the alewives. That was another thing on the beach. And so that started my whole thing. And then our family had an island up in Canada and was like 9 miles of a boat to get to him. So I've been on water my whole life to some extent. So I've gotten to see a lot of different things, but it's the nature that is surrounded by lakes. I like to say that lake life is life. And I'm sure all the people from California and Texas discover that.
Mm-hmm.
In Chicago. Chicago, do you know why Chicago is called the Windy City, by the way?
There's a lot of wind there?
Nope. It's from the politics.
Okay.
Just so you know. So the thing about, do you get a lot of requests? I need to face west, for instance.
Not really. I don't think I've really heard that very much as far as people concerned, like which direction the house is facing. Typically, we'll get more of people want the privacy with the trees around the house or whatever, but then it's also important to say we don't want them too close to the house because then the sun never gets a chance to dry off your roof, and then you get a rotten roof and there's a lot of maintenance and things like that. I think people tend to probably be a little bit more concerned about the privacy versus how much this is going to cost me in maintenance on a house versus which direction it's facing. Any house that's looking at the water is going to have a great water view, lots of windows on that side of the house because that's the way it was just built. So people are probably more concerned about that, like what their view of the water happens to be, how tall the trees are, looking out over the yard, whether it interrupts their view of the water. And that's another thing too, is, hey, you can't just go down there and cut down all these trees.
Can you limb them up? Can you limb them up?
It will depend on if you're in an area that has a homeowners association. It will also depend on if you're on like a meets and bounds type of a property versus a platted property. With the townships, again, they may put in the rules of, hey, in this zone, you're only allowed to do so much maintenance on your property for whatever view you want because it could destroy the ecosystem that's around there. Like I always say, it's whatever your township rules have been determined to be, and some townships are more hardcore than others. There's some townships up here that they won't even let you have a light if it shines outside of the boundaries of your property. So if you have a mercury light out there and it happens to go past the limits of your property, nope, you can't have it, and they'll come out and they'll take it right down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here it seems like it's more statewide, but of course there's only 1.3 million people in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And when I lived in Manhattan, if you were 1 in a million, there was 8 people just like you. Mm-hmm. That's frightening. Especially when my twin brother came to visit, and 16 people like us. But that's a math equation, by the way. Here, the state dictates a lot in terms of setbacks and distances from wetlands and setbacks from lakes. But you can limb up a tree. You can't cut it down necessarily, but you can limb it up. Mm-hmm. To a certain percentage. You can't just limb it up and have the one leaf at the top is, oh no, I just limbed it up.
I limbed it all the way up.
Yeah, it's a totem pole now. So that's, but it does affect a lot of, and I'm sure you may have heard, can I add sand on the beach? I'm sure you can't do that.
Right? No, you cannot touch the beach here. A classic example. One of my friends told me about this. It was on Thanksgiving Day. Now, this was many years ago, but it was on Thanksgiving Day. Right along the bay in Traverse City, there's a hotel zone. And that's where when all the tourists come to visit, and they're staying in hotels, that's where they're staying at. There's Airbnbs too, but if you're going to be on a hotel, most of the hotels that people want are on the water. On Thanksgiving Day, one of the hotel, I don't know if he was an owner, manager, or whatever, but some higher level person at the hotel had gotten an excavator and he was pushing the dirt around on the beach because he wanted to make it look a certain way. And it just so happened that a DNR officer was driving home from their Thanksgiving meal and just happened to see him. So he pulled right on in that hotel, and I don't think he went to jail, but I think it was very close.
So my house was the ugliest house in recorded history. It was actually a kit house from the 30s in the middle, and then the additions were made in the 80s that were terrible. And there's no reason for it to standing. There was 10 inches of water over my septic tank because literally everything drained toward my house. I fixed a lot of that. But to do that, I had a trench dug, and it relieved. Basically, the driveway was like acting like a dam from all the water coming down. Someone turned me in saying, "Oh, I'm violating all these things," but really, what I did was improve the land significantly. And now here, the state doesn't want you to use more than 20% of the land as impervious.
Mm-hmm.
Impervious meaning driveways, house foundation, things like that. So I went through a whole thing, and I showed that what I bought, 13% was impervious, and what I did brought it down to 11%.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has a waterfront with that improved it. Of course, it was a lot of it's groundwater, which is not, I'm just filtering groundwater with rocks and things like that. But it significantly improved it. So anything that went toward the lake was basically filtered
Mm-hmm.
through rocks and things like that. But here they're strict. I don't know if you've got a vacant land, waterfront lot. First of all, does each town determine a setback from the lake, or is that a state mandated and the town can do more?
Yep. The each township, so each county in Michigan will usually have anywhere from, typically they'll have about 15 townships inside each county.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a county, and then it's split up into grids, and each one is a township. And then you will elect, everybody that lives there will elect a township board, and there'll be 5 or 6 people on the township board. They'll have a zoning person, an assessor, a clerk, whatever. And so they will sit down together, and they will come up with the rules. And one of those things is, how far from the water do you have to be before you start building? And each one will vary, but it's not uncommon to see about 50 feet from the water is a minimum setback.
That's in there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of a township around here that's closer to the water. Now, of course, any of the homes that are already there and built, because they did things way different 100 years ago. If something is already there, okay, fine, whatever. But if a storm knocks that building over, there's a fire, you want to rebuild it or whatever, then you have to, let's say that building is 30 feet from the water. If something happens and you're going to redo that building, they say, nope, you can't put it back in place. You have to back it up another 20 feet, and then you can start building.
Yeah, that's the same here, except my lot, it's only 150 feet wide to begin with. My house is 28 feet from the lake. But everything I did was this was a little something. I put a 6-foot deck out toward the lake. The state gave me permission to do a 12-foot deck. But what I showed is that I had a metal roof, so you don't have the toxins from an asphalt roof.
Mm-hmm.
Dumping water onto a 6-foot deck, which basically spread the water out and dribbled underneath to another deck. So in essence, I created an erosion control by having a deck.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, never thought of that.
And then if you're close enough to the water, before you're allowed to do anything, you have to go through, it used to be called DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality. They call it EGLE now, Environmental Great Lakes, something, whatever. Yep. And on some of the waterfront properties, depending on the size and location, how close you are to the water, you have to do, before you do anything, what's called a delineation study, where they come in and basically it's, okay, if I pour a bucket of water here, how far down towards the water is it going to roll? And that will determine where and what you can build, what kind of a septic system you can put in. That's really important, because you can very quickly go from, you're not allowed to put a regular septic system in here that every other house has. You have to go put it now between your house and the street, and it has to be a mound system, and you have to use a pump system to pump this stuff out, instead of just digging a big giant hole, sticking a tank down there and having a septic work the way a septic does. They may say, nope, you have to get an entirely different system because you're this close to the water.
So it's not really based on, a perk test is going to tell you where the water table is in any way. So that determines more about what type of system you can have. And then there's bubbler systems that you can, very small lots.
Yep. A perfect example, last fall, I sold a house on Lake Leelanau. And it was a house that was built, I think they built it in the 50s or something like that. And they had a regular standard septic system like all the other houses did, because back in the 50s, Nobody cared what you were putting in the lake. Let's be honest, no one cared. They didn't have
Yep.
the township set up the way they did. They didn't have the rules that they do now. They probably didn't know some of the environmental stuff that we know now. And since that time, the rule came in for this house here, for that particular house, they had to run it through the county health department before they were allowed to sell it to get a evaluation. And part of the evaluation said, okay, you can continue, the current owner can continue using this system until it fails. When it fails, it might be 10 years from now, might be tomorrow, but when it fails, you are required to scrap the system you have and go put a pump system on the other side of your house, so your house is between the system and the lake. Instead of your septic currently now between the lake and your house, you have to completely move it. However, if you're selling the house, whoever the buyer is, they have 180 days from the day that they buy this house. Whether that system fails or not doesn't matter. They are now required, because they bought the house, within 180 days to go put this new pump system on the other side of the house between the road and the house. And there's more and more townships and counties in Michigan that are doing that. Grand Traverse County, where Traverse City is located, they just started this year in January here a couple months ago, where you have to get what's called a POS, or a point of sale inspection, where they inspect your well and septic and any property that is any part of the house, whether it's the corner of your house or the corner of your house, is if it's within 300 feet of any water, you have to get that inspection. And they can most certainly tell you, current owner, you're fine. When the system fails, you have to buy a new one. But if a new buyer comes in here, they have 6 months to go do the same thing. Whether it failed or not doesn't matter. You're going to replace that system.
That seems more strict. In Massachusetts, they have something called Title V, and every house has to be inspected. And if they deem that it's just old, even, you have to replace it. And there it's expensive. There in Michigan, it may not be as, because you do have aggregate in terms of sand and that kind of stuff. New Hampshire, it's all sand, rocks, everything. We had everything here. Now, of course, rocks is interesting, because my brother has a landscape nursery in Pontiac, Michigan, and they sell rocks. I just dig anywhere, and I have every rock in the world. I'm thinking anytime I visit Michigan, I can bring a pile of rocks and sell them for money, because it's like, I'm building a garage now. I've got more rocks. I have big rocks. And again, my house was the ugliest house in recorded history. The corner of the house, which is not very important structurally, as we all know, the corner joist was just sitting on top of a rock. It was a little rock. We thought. We started digging. It was 8 feet by 5 feet. It took 2 excavators to move out. That's the state rock is the entire state. So you kind of dropped into real estate with an interesting background. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I did kind of see is you met all kinds of people, and that's the one thing that this business does, is you meet all kinds of people. Some scary people. I was a victim of an assault by the ex-boyfriend of one of my clients, because he felt I was in his house. It wasn't his house. That's beside the point. I was a big threat. He was 30 years younger, and it's like taller and whatever. I'm a threat, as we all know.
Yeah.
But it does kind of help you, because we become psychologists sometimes. And do you find that buyers and sellers, even though they've never met, start hating each other?
Sometimes it can
the emotions.
Yeah. And it can be something as simple as a buyer coming in saying, I don't think that the house is worth this much money. Or maybe they're just like, I'm going to see if I can get it for a deal. And that seller gets insulted. And from day one, you have a problem. And I've always been under the operating belief of, on one hand, you have a buyer that wants to sell their house, a seller that wants to sell their house, and a buyer that wants to buy it. And our job as realtors is to stay in the middle and make sure that it doesn't get blown apart. And there's a lot of things that my clients will say that never quite make it to the other side, because, you know what? It's really not that important. The other side doesn't need to hear that, because it's going to make things bad. Let me repackage this in a way that I can talk to the other agent and say, hey, this is something that's important to my people, and it doesn't come across as bad. Now, I have had clients before where they got upset and they actually found the contact information for the other person. I had a buyer that was looking to buy a house, Didn't work out. They found the contact information for the seller and called them up and said, I'm going to kick your ass. So naturally, that deal was done. There was no more counter offering to be done there. We moved on to the next opportunity.
And then we have situations. The reason someone sells a house, especially a waterfront, there's a divorce, there's a death, there's a divorce is a form of death. By the way, I find it interesting that the same window that you get a marriage license is the same window you get the death license certificate from a town. I don't know what that means. But anyway.
It's called convenience.
You could pick up both at the same time, right?
The person at the window, oh, you're back.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, it's like, yeah. But I just pre-signed this. And as an investigator, you would know, oh, no, that's going to be my next case. But anyway, my first transaction was a divorced couple. They hadn't literally talked to each other in 3 years. They hated each other. So I figured, okay, we'll just do the closing at the registry of deeds because that's where there was a lot of police officers. And I did it by the candy machine instead of like a little room because it was public and nobody got hurt.
I don't think anyone's ever been stabbed in front of a candy machine.
That was the lobby. So, but I've also had situations. This is where it gets tricky, and I think people don't realize how much we deal with sometimes. And sometimes it can be dangerous, but don't tell my husband this or don't tell my wife this. And I said, I have to tell both of you because you're both on the deed. You're both. And I had one situation where they called the title person. I was on my way to the closing and they called my office and talked to the title person who was doing the transaction. I was like 2 minutes away. You got to give me 2 checks. You got to give us 2 checks because my husband beats me. So it's okay. And then they're calling me, did you know? I said, did they come in the same car?
Yep.
And of course, I was assaulted by punching in the nose by some twit.
We wear many hats.
Yes, and sometimes face masks. And you wear a Michigan hat, even though you went to Michigan State.
Yes.
So, my quick little story, which we don't need on the podcast, is that I went to Miami of Ohio. My twin brother went to Michigan State, and Miami of Ohio had an invitational invite to a football game. And so they saw, oh, it's just, we're just going to pounce the crap out of these people. And so I sat in the student section. There was a guy that you would get rides up from Miami up to the school. And this guy he was the water boy for the team, our team, but they didn't even want him in the bus. So I'm in the student section and I didn't know he was the ball boy, whatever. And we had just scored a field goal that put little tiny Miami ahead of Michigan State, which would have been an embarrassment. I was smart enough to know that I don't stand up and go, yay in the student section. But I see this guy, I'm sure the team put him up to this, and I'm sure you remember this. Anytime there's a ball that went from the opposing team, they pass it up the stadium and over the edge,
Over the edge, yeah.
Over the edge, right? So he decided, someone said, hey, why don't you go retrieve the ball? Going, so here he is with the Miami, everything, he's a tall guy, and he tries to grab the ball. That was suicide. So a kid took his hat, threw it up and over the edge. And what does this guy do? He punches him. I said, that's like suicide.
And I bet you there was no witnesses.
No witnesses. Nobody saw it.
No one saw anything.
I see nothing. Okay, back to real estate. I'm sure this will be edited out, but I should have a section on the fun statements. AI. Do you do a lot of? You started talking about AI. Did you start something with AI?
I did. I am, if you look me up on Google, if you look up Northern Michigan or Traverse City AI Realtor, you'll see me. I'm the Google AI overview person that's cited. I'm the first and currently the only realtor in Northern Michigan to have an AI assistant. Its name is Normi, Normi. It's shortened for Northern Michigan. And what Normi is, it's on my website. I don't know if you can pull my website up. You can see it. It's free to use. Anybody can use it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's an AI assistant that is specifically trained on everything Northern Michigan real estate. It even knows more stuff like other lifestyle things and things like that too. But I've specifically filled it up with knowledge of Northern Michigan real estate. For example, if you want to know what the differences are between Crystal Lake and Torch Lake, you can type that in and it'll spit out all the differences and the dynamics and lifestyle differences between the two. And it's accurate information because I loaded all that information in there. If you want to know about short-term rental ordinances by the townships, it knows all that information. There's a few that even have caps. You can only have 150 short-term rentals in this township. Normi knows that because Normi gets the information from the same place that I would be getting it from. And so you can use this tool. You can type any questions you want. It'll give you a high-level answer. It would give you the same answer that I would. The difference is it may take me 2 or 3 days to go get you the information, whereas Normi can get it for you in 30 seconds. And as I said, we're both getting the information from the same place. It's just because it's on a computer, it can instantly pull it up, whereas I have to let me go look it up. Let me call the township. Let me go look at this information, and I can analyze it and get it back to you.
But you're populating that information
correct.
Yourself.
Yep.
Because I'm finding with a lot of the AI stuff, it's good, but sometimes completely inaccurate. And of course, you can update that.
Yep.
So that's interesting. That would be something I'd be interested in, looking at as an option. And I get a lot of calls about, I don't want an AI assistant. I think this is better because I don't think that people want to talk to Normi to get to you. You're kind of making it your information
correct.
AI person.
Yep. Think of it as my brain or an entire encyclopedia of everything that you want to know up here that I couldn't possibly know off the top of my head. I can give you some good general answers and things like that, but there's so much information that I can get, but it'll just take me a couple of days to get it and get it back to you.
So in other words, the tagline that you're going to put down is my brain, but better.
The tagline that I run around saying with it now is it's designed to remove confusion, not replace judgment. And because this is the biggest question I get, is AI going to replace realtors? No, it's not. The realtors that figure out how to use AI to be a benefit to people are going to be able to serve more people. And so that's the benefit that's going to happen. Now, the people that don't get on board with that or don't say, okay, yes, I could use this for a benefit and a tool to benefit all the people out there, those will be the ones that get left behind, I think, much like when the internet came out and everyone's, that's a fad. I'm not going to put my store on the internet. Those stores really aren't around anymore. And I kind of view AI as the same thing. I think there's a lot of people that say, I don't want it replacing me. It's not going to replace you. Normi doesn't replace me. Normi answers you at 2:00 in the morning with all the answers I would be giving you immediately.
But I still get those calls at 2 a.m. What does that mean?
Well, I don't know. I don't really get a whole lot of calls there, but that doesn't mean that someone's not getting off their shift at 11 o'clock at night and they want to know real estate answers. Right. I'm not going to be answering you at 11 o'clock at night. Sorry.
Well, I think that's so. Now, what I've done on my site, I have a little section called my site's waterfrontagent.com. Now, I got waterfrontagent.net 20 years ago because of my first listing. .com wasn't available. When .com became available, I paid $7,000 for that domain. Agents don't do that, I'm sure.
Right.
They don't spend money on really anything. But if I didn't, I would have lost all the momentum, and now it's just part of an identity. With some of the fun AI, I have a section called the fun part of real estate. And I've done these little Sora AI videos, which are insane. I put in, the only picture it took was a picture of me like this, and somehow it found my bald spot. I don't know how they did that, but and captured my voice. But like I did selling flamingos, an ice house on Lake Winnipesaukee, or a bunch of penguins, an igloo, or Barbie and Ken, a little tiny house, or a lumberjack buying a tree house with a chainsaw and that kind of stuff. And I just put, but in me riding a loon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now people thought, I get these, they're so realistic. People think, did you really ride a loon? How'd you not get wet?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But I don't even do the script, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of fun with it, but I make it related to real estate and
Mm-hmm.
waterfronts. Me riding in the back of a moose. It's all on my site. But
Yeah. Well,
I also did it. I did it for a client I was meeting to look at land. It was 5 degrees. It was a lot of snow. So I did one that showed me showing this land. I put in this lot, this waterfront lot on Crystal Lake in Gilmanton, and we're chest high in snow. In the background, you can see a polar bear and some penguins. And I said, yeah, this is like 5.3 acres and on Crystal Lake. I put those words in. And I said, look, when I met them, I said, look, I already showed it to you. Here we but it was my first meeting with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just created this funny thing, but it was related to what I do.
Yep.
So I had fun with that. What you're doing is something I think is a valuable tool, but not frightening.
I'll give you
Better.
a perfect example. Are you able to pull anything up on your screen right now so people could see it? We could do ask it a quick question here, and you can see the kind of answer that it gives you. I'm not sure if you can pull that up right now.
Let me see. Okay, so let me see your email. So what's your? Hold on one second.
Do you have a link to my website, the AaronKendallRealEstate.com?
Somewhere, but
or you can just like pop in Google and say Aaron Kendall Normi. And
okay, so what's the website? I'll just type it in.
AaronKendallRealEstate.com, and then you'll see a tab and you'll see Normi on it.
Okay, so I'm going to. I see. Oh, Normi. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to video this.
Okay.
Because I don't know how to connect it to what we're doing here.
Okay.
That way. So I'll do a video of it, which is going to be. Let me try to get to it darker. Ooh, heads up. Okay, so I'm going to video this.
Okay.
And okay, so I'm going to hit. This is your website. This is you. That's me. Okay. Normi.
Yep. And for the question, type in, I'll just make something up here.
Okay. I'm seeing this. Okay, so this is your 24/7 AI Realtor Assistant. Ask a question. Okay. Where do I ask a question?
You should see 4 quick start buttons, and then underneath that, it should say, ask me anything. It's right at the top of the page.
Oh, top of the page?
Yep.
Oh, right there?
Should be a black box.
Yeah. How homes actually, are you just a chat bot or are you something else? Where are the best values? How does Normi give better answers?
Yep. And then underneath that, you'll see a line that says, ask me anything. If you click on there. And this,
there. Okay.
Yep. This is the power of Normi. So type in, I have $400,000.
If I put 400K, will it understand that?
Yes, it will. Yep.
Okay.
And I'm looking to buy an STR, short-term rental. Where should I choose? Lake Leelanau or East Bay Township? This is the kind of questions that you put in here. It's not like the Google search terms of like homes under 300,000. With Normi, you ask multi-layered questions.
Okay, so Lord, how do you spell Leelanau?
Leelanau. I'm going to grab a cord. I got to plug my...
Or what's the other one?
East Bay.
East Bay. Okay. Okay.
And it'll think for about 30 seconds, well, probably about 15 to 20 seconds. And what it's doing is it's analyzing the information that it knows about specifically Lake Leelanau and East Bay Township. And it's going to talk to you probably about, because it's not pre-programmed, so I don't know what it's going to tell you, but it'll probably go along the lines of which township is more restrictive, which township is more expensive, which one's going to give you problems, that kind of things.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a brief little quick intro. We have here an AI really information portal for Aaron Kendall and his website. It's called Normi, Normi, Northern Michigan, trademark, I see. And we just plugged in a question. I have 400K and looking to buy an STR. Where should I choose? Lake Leelanau or East Bay? Okay, so that's a very specific question. And then I click there and it's going to give me an answer. This is on AaronKendallRealEstate.com. Welcome. I'm Normi, your Northern Michigan Real Estate Pro Assistant. Okay. Is it still thinking? Is that what that means?
It probably is. It'll start typing when it gets its answer put together.
Okay. Oh, this is a pretty significant answer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. This is not a pre-canned answer. It's nothing that a lot of chatbots will just spit out some pre-canned answer. This is thinking, and it gets you the answer.
Yeah, guest demand and why people book. East Bay strong draw from Traverse City, Lake Leelanau. My sister had a place there. Needs to book well for the classic Leelanau experience. Yeah, this is all very good information. Now, will you populate a lot of it, or did you kind of plug it in and then you kind of edited to be more accurate, some of the information?
Do you mean the answer that it's giving you right now?
Yes. And then it says my practical recommendation. That's interesting.
Yeah.
This is a huge amount of information.
Yeah. So the answer, I had nothing to do with that. I had no clue what kind of a question you'd ask or anything. So this is based on, it's an OpenAI or ChatGPT large language model, like Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini from Google. And what it's doing is it's spitting out the answer to you. And I've given it like some basic instructions and prompts on how to act and how to behave and how to think. And then I've fed it the information to train it on Northern Michigan real estate. But that answer that it's spitting out to you, I had nothing to do with typing it or anything. That's the system analyzing all this information just like I would if you asked me that question. And I would come back with probably the same answer there. It's just there's no way I could do it in this amount of time like Normi does.
No, absolutely not.
And none of this is, I don't have answers pre-populated where it automatically, based on your keywords, spits out an answer. If you were to type that exact same question in again, it'll give you probably it'll give you the same basic information, but it'll word it differently or nuance it differently because it's a conversation back and forth. This is not the Google search of homes in Traverse City for $300,000. This is you ask it multi-layered, multi-level questions that are complex. And the more difficult your question, the more it shines. If you add 3 or 4 layers in that question, it'll still do the same thing. It spits out that elite level 7-8 paragraph answer. It might put some charts and tables in there for you.
Okay, and then you can, because you can transcribe it, I'm assuming you can then put it into marketing pieces as well, which is,
Yep. And it probably will at the bottom, if you look at it, it'll probably ask you a couple clarifying questions. At the bottom, it's probably going to ask you 1 or 2 questions of, now tell me this and I can get you an even more refined answer. It'll help you think about things like, did you want to be like on the water or just a water view? So it'll literally have a conversation with you back and forth. And at some point during the conversation, it'll detect like a really high intent decision on the person's part. I really think I need to talk to Aaron now. And it'll say, do you want me to pass all this information on to Aaron and give him your phone number so he can call you and talk to you about it? And if a person says no, or they just completely ignore it, it never gets sent to me. I don't know who you are. I don't have any of your contact information. You could even put your contact information, and if you said, do not send this to Aaron, it will not send it to me. So I will not call you. I won't email you. This won't get sent to me at all. It's only if you say, yes, I want Aaron to follow up with me on this information, that it gets sent to me.
I think that's great. I think we've gotten a lot of great information here. Do you have a special sort of like gift that you give everybody? promote who you are, like a little robot?
A little robot.
And are you going to be one of the first people to have Tesla's robot person that comes to somebody's house to answer the question?
No, the main intention is that when, like I said, people get off their 11 o'clock shift and they want to have these kind of answers coming in, they can do that when I'm not available. Or sometimes there's a lot of people that they have questions that they just don't want to ask because they think they'll get judged right off the bat. So this is an opportunity to kind of start getting educated and learning about what you want to learn about. And then when you do talk to me, you're 3 steps ahead of the game. We're way past like answering some of these zoning questions on Garfield Township or what kind of septic systems do I have. You already know because you've talked to Normi and Normi has told you the same answer I'm going to give you. So now we can get down to, okay, let's start seeing these places. And instead of, what is it, the first couple of times you talk to a person, it's entirely educating them and bringing them up on the house process and transactions and what loans are and whatnot. They can have this conversation and get all of this information out of the way. And so then when we meet, we're ready to get down to business and get you in while everybody else is still trying to figure out the process to begin with. So this really sets a lot of people ahead of the competition to be able to, in a very competitive market, to be able to get into houses quicker.
Yep. I think that's great. I'm going to wind this down because my battery says it's about to sleep.
Okay.
And I can't find my charger. Thank you very much. It was really a joy talking about me. It's all about me. And it was a pleasure meeting with you. My little thing is I always tell people I'm not the only loon on the lake.
There you
have
go.
it.
There you go.
And there's nobody who would disagree. Thank you. And I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Waterfront Agent Podcast. I'll be back with some more stories, tips, and expert interviews, and hopefully some humor. So make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.